Reynold Flames is the alpha Lycan King in Westland. He was known to be the most powerful in the world of werewolves. Reynold was devilishly handsome. He had jet black curly hair that went down to his shoulders. His eyes were sea green with thick long eyelashes which made him get mistaken for a woman. Alpha Reynold was very popular among the ladies since he owned his own magazine modeling company. He made most of the celebrities who are famous get to where they were. Sadly, Reynold did not have a mate. No matter how many women he petted, he still felt the emptiness of not having a mate. He had tried looking for her but never got to find her. At some point, he gave up the search and decided to drown his sadness in women and his modeling company. Reynold never kept a woman by his side for long because he saw them as a bother who wanted nothing more than to be famous using his influence. Not that he found anything wrong with them wanting to be famous, but he was a man who hated being used, especially by a woman. As simple as he was among the ladies, he was also very hard not to crack. He was more powerful than most of the alphas in other packs, who trembled whenever they heard of his name. Reynold had only one sister, Arya. Arya is 15 years old, and she is the type of girl who stands up for what is right, just like her brother Reynold. Alpha Reynold loved his sister so much that he gave her anything she asked for, no matter how silly her demands were. He was like her second parent, and so he took good care of her, just like their parents would have done if they were still alive. Reynold had been leading his kingdom from a very tender age, ever since his father and mother got attacked by an unknown Lycan. Reynolds has been looking for his parents' killers up to date, and the little information he has gathered from those caught is that they were sent by a higher-up. Alpha Reynold didn't get to extract the information about who the real perpetrator was before they all committed suicide before his eyes. Ever since then, he had lost track of the information about who the real killer was, and Reynold had never given up the search because he had made a vow to his parents that he would find their killers and take revenge, no matter who they were. "My lord, do you really wish to visit the White Snowpack?" Reynold, who had been busy in his office, raised a brow at his royal beta Stanley. "Any problems with that?" "Not a concern, to be precise. But I don't think we should trust Alpha Blake. I mean, we don't know if he is in cohorts with the rogue Alpha close to his pack." Reynold stopped the work he was engaged in and focused his attention on Stanley. "You should know I do not just trust anyone, Stanley. I ordered Gamma Rivers and Delta Caleb to get the pack thoroughly investigated before our departure. I'm still waiting for a reply. Put your mind to rest, Stanley." Stanley heaved a sigh of relief because his father had told him to protect the Lycan King with his life after what happened to his parents. Stanley's father was the former beta to the late king, and it still hurt him that he couldn't protect his Alpha and Luna. So, when Stanley was made the beta to the present king, he had sworn to protect the king with his life. They still couldn't find the real killers of the late leaders, so it was only natural for Stanley to get worried about his Alpha King. Reynolds' modeling company had bred so many famous models in the industry, and it was known far and wide. Every other modeling company wishes to partner with his company in order to become famous, and as Reynold was a Lycan greatly feared and respected, he didn't just accept to make deals with companies that weren't up to his standards. Some of these companies sent him their best models to seduce him just to get a partnership contract, and he was getting tired of these relentless companies who kept trying to make him sign them in. Just then, a model sent from Herod Modeling Company walked in. Reynold raised his head to see an overly dressed woman with makeup that made her look way too different from her original self. Sometimes he wondered why these companies did not have the capability of grooming their models before sending them out to seduce someone like him. She had been here last week, and just like the rest, he had given her exactly what she wanted right here in his office. Seeing her here only meant she wanted the same thing, but deep down he knew all this was just to sign a contract with his company. "My lord, may I please you so you can relax your nerves?" Reynold gave her his devilish grin and gestured for her to come in. She knelt down before him just like before, and he let her take off the belt from his pants. She took out his massive length, which made her eyes twinkle with excitement. And so she didn't waste time getting him inside her mouth as she sucked him off. She gagged a few times but continued sucking him off with pleasure. Meanwhile, Reynolds pulled his head backward, enjoying the feel of the model's mouth on his hard length. When it seemed that he didn't get enough of the pleasure, he pulled her head up against his length, thereby making her swallow him whole. She gagged again, but did not stop sucking him until Reynolds finally made an ecstatic release in her mouth, which she swallowed with all pleasure. "A good girl you are," Reynolds said, giving her a kiss on the forehead. The model cleaned herself up and in excitement asked him when she would get to work in his company. "Look, if you want to start working in my company, then you would have to go back to your company and get proper grooming. And also tell them to reduce the amount of paint on your face. It's hideous," Reynolds said with utter disgust. And this made the model sad and embarrassed. She just ran out of his office with her hands covering the tears that were probably making their way out of her eyes. This was Reynolds' way of turning them down when these companies sent their models over. He had rejected quite a few companies over the years. If there's something he dislikes most about these companies, it's their knack of trying to seduce him with a beauty. Sometimes he wished they would realize beauties don't make him muddle-headed to the point of signing a contract. He dealt with perfection, skills, and talents, not some seducing strategy. Reynolds knew those with talents, and whenever he saw such talents, he didn't waste much time making them work for his company. And most of these models opportune to be selected by him were always more than grateful to work for him. Despite having to do his work, he also knows he has to look for his parents' killers because, over the years, there have been attempted assassinations for his life. But he pulled through them all. He knows that whoever is trying to kill him is the one responsible for his parents' deaths, and he has to find him at all costs, find out why he killed his parents, and give him a peaceful death. He heard the white snowpack had good tracers that could get you the hardest information, because they have talented tracers. All he had to do was journey to Southern America and find this alpha. The last time he visited that park was many years ago, when he was still a little boy of 15. Now he's 29 years old, which means the last time he visited White Snow Park was 14 years ago. He doesn't even have a memory of the place anymore. 14 years was a long time, so he really did not blame Stan when he asked him to be careful. By the way, his Gamma and Delta were on the case, so he would find out everything he needed to know soon. Reynolds drove into his brick-built gigantic mansion, where a waterfall was laid which was constructed at the center of the mansion, giving it a more luxurious outlook. Tall trees leading to a wild forest were found on the exterior of the mansion. Lycan Alpha Reynolds can be well described as the youngest Lycan Alpha, with properties and companies scattered around the world. "Welcome, brother," Reynolds' little sister Aria said aloud from the balcony. She looked delighted to see her brother because he rarely came home. Reynolds had a separate mansion built away from the pack house. This separately built mansion was built for his own personal activities. He respected his Wolf pack enough not to bring in those brunettes and redheads from his company. Whatever shady activities he engaged in were done away from home. Aria ran to her brother, giving him a big hug. "Nice to see you, little pumpkin." Aria gave Reynolds a bright, beautiful smile, which made him remember how much she looked like their mom. "Why are you alone today?" Reynolds asked, seeing his sister all alone. Mrs. Sigma had to go see her mate, who just came back from Canada. Reynolds raised a brow. Carol never told him about this, and he didn't like the fact that she didn't get permission from him before leaving the mansion. "Don't be angry, brother. She told me about it and I gave her permission in your stead." Reynolds looked at his sister in shock. He couldn't believe his little sister was all grown up and giving permission to workers in his stead. "I know you are all grown up now, but next time call me before giving permission, okay?" Aria nodded with a grin. Reynolds never allowed his sister to leave the house because he didn't want her to become a target for the enemy. knowing she was the most important person in his life. He rather employed a home tutor for her, whom he knew was qualified and trustworthy. Carol was the best choice in this field. He found Carol at the Lycan's Academy through the head principal who had headed the school since the reign of his father. He found Carol to be the best teacher among the few selected, and so he promised to pay her enough to take care of his sister's education. But all she had to do was stay in the Pax mansion. Carol agreed after careful consideration with her mate Patrick. Patrick worked in one of his modeling branches as a manager, though it was his fault this time not to inform Carol about her husband's coming to town. But still, she should have called him about her leaving the mansion. He can't trust anyone completely despite how clean a record they have, mostly when it comes to his sister. He had to offer her the best protection he could to keep her safe at all times. "Brother, when will you bring your mate home? I'm bored and I need someone to take me out once in a while." Arya made a sad and pouty face, and it made him weep. How was he to make his sister understand that he might not get to find a mate in this life? He understood how lonely she was, but then he couldn't just marry any woman. If he were to be married someday, it would be to a woman he really trusts. And finding such a woman is like looking for a needle in a haystack. For more stories, subscribe to At the Romance Library. Thank you for watching.